This is the Ninja Creami, which has taken over TikTok. But does it live up to the hype? The rules for today are simple. We've gathered 6 different ice cream machines and we're going to test them all to see how they perform and ultimately which one makes the best tasting ice cream. Let's begin with the cheapest one. I bought this at a second-hand store for $21. It's the Sunbeam Snack Heroes ice cream maker. It's actually discontinued now, but there are plenty of this style of machine around for about $40 new. Basically, they have a lid with a motor in it to turn the paddle. Here's the plastic paddle, and then there's a bowl which needs to go in the freezer to chill first. And then this one also has a plastic bucket at the bottom to make it look pretty, and it will also give it some insulation for the ice cream bowl. So for this sort of machine, you need to plan ahead because that ice cream bowl has to go into the freezer for at least 24 hours, preferably 48 hours. And of course, you're going to need room in your freezer, which, unless you're going to eat all the ice cream straight away, you're going to need room in your freezer to put the ice cream anyway. For all of these, for the initial test, we're going to use a traditional vanilla ice cream recipe, which is made using egg yolks whisked with sugar, then that's heated with the milk and the cream. That mixture then has to be chilled in the fridge before you can churn it. Then you just pour it in. This one can take 800 millilitres of mixture. Turn it on, and the noise level on this machine is medium. You'd need to talk louder than normal if you were in the same room. After waiting for 30 minutes, we have ice cream. Now, most of these machines say to freeze the ice cream for a couple of hours after it's been made, but we all know if you have young kids waiting for that ice cream, that's not going to happen. So here's what it looks like if you scoop it straight away. If you want to make another batch, you're going to need to wait 24 hours because the bowl has to chill again. Clean up on this machine is easy. The little piece in the lid comes out, so you can just wash that in hot soapy water with the rest of it. I'll put all of these in the freezer overnight so we can do the taste test with them at the exact same temperature. Now you may be thinking, if I'm using the exact same recipe, surely they're all going to taste the same. But with ice cream, the mouthfeel is really important as to how enjoyable it is. And that's affected by things like the size of the ice crystals in the ice cream. If they're too big, you'll be able to feel them. It'll feel rough instead of being that smooth and creamy texture. Also, it matters how much air is incorporated into the ice cream. That affects how quickly it melts on your tongue and how easy it is to scoop and how soft it is. It's amazing how little changes to the shape of the paddle or the temperature it's frozen at can make a huge difference to those two factors. Now, if you have a spare $149, you can buy the Mistral digital ice cream maker with compressor. Just like the first one, the motor to turn the paddle is in the lid here, but the major difference is this one has a compressor, which means we don't need to pre-freeze a bowl. We can just use this one straight away. This one has a max fill line of 500 millilitres, so it's not going to make as much ice cream. As far as noise, this is actually one of the quietest ones. And after 15 minutes, it's still liquid. The timer on this unit counts up, so I can see how much time has passed, but I have no idea how long this process is going to take. And once it finally does start to freeze, you can see the scraper is not quite reaching to the edges, so we're getting a frozen layer forming that's not being churned. At around the 45-minute mark, it was done. It gave a loud beep and stopped churning. The middle here looks pretty good, but I'm really disappointed by these edges. You can see we've got this whole layer that wasn't churned, which is really going to affect the texture. A little more time from the design team to get that paddle to be just the right shape would have made a big difference. And it's not just the sides, it's the whole bottom has a big layer of unchurned ice cream, which is very icy as well. As far as cleanup, I thought this bit on the lid was going to be tricky, but it actually comes off so you can clean it, so it's all good. Here's the texture of it if you serve it immediately, and if you want to make another batch, you only have to wait 5 minutes, which is the big advantage of having the compressor. There's no pre-freezing of a bowl. The price jumps dramatically if you want a Ninja Creami Deluxe. They come in at $449. Now, this machine works very differently from any of the other machines that we're testing today because they all churn as the ice cream is freezing to keep those ice crystals small. With the Ninja Creami, you put your mixture into a cup and put it in the freezer and let big ice crystals form. Then you use the machine to chop them up. It has a blade that spins and gets lowered all the way down and then back up. This is basically a copy of the PacoJet, which is a very expensive machine. It costs thousands of dollars and you'll probably only find it in commercial kitchens for that reason. The patent on that machine ran out in 2017 and Ninja did some redesigning to make it suitable for a home kitchen, and this is the result. It is very, very similar, but if you strip them down, you'll notice that the PacoJet has a much, much more powerful motor, so it can handle a lot of harder products. It can churn through those. And the PacoJet also has the ability to add air as you're churning, and the Ninja does not have that. So you're not adding any air into the mixture. You end up with a very dense mixture. And the spinning blade, of course, cannot go all the way to the edge or you'd be scratching in pieces of plastic. But on this one, you can scrape it down and give it a respin for a couple of minutes more to break up those icy bits. As far as noise goes, this is by far the loudest of the ones we are testing today. It is very hard to talk over it. As far as volume goes, you can freeze 700 mils, but because it doesn't add any air into it, the end volume is more like what you'd get if you had 500 mils in a different machine. To make another batch, if you've got another cup frozen, you're good to go straight away, but if not, you've got to wait 24 hours for it to freeze. Just a note here, this traditional ice cream has a reasonable amount of fat in it from the cream and a reasonable amount of sugar, and so when it's frozen, it's actually not solid like ice would be. I can get a knife and push it all the way to the bottom of the container. So that makes it fairly easy to churn. It can be churned in about 5 minutes, including the respin. But if you're wanting to make low-fat ice cream, which has not much sugar in it, then you're going to find that's going to freeze a lot harder, which is a lot more work on the motor. So as a result, if you select the low-fat ice cream option, it's going to take 5 minutes to churn it, so it's going a lot slower, and then you're probably going to need to respin it. I tend to find it needs to be respinned 2 more times to get that creamy texture with the low-fat ice cream. But a lot of people just say that they leave it out for 20 minutes before they churn it then for the 5, so about 25 minutes. So the time it takes to churn really varies a lot depending on what you're making. And if you want to make slushy drinks in this, you need to add in more liquid drink on top so that it is not too hard for the motor. All of the other machines don't have that problem because they're not trying to chop up ice that's already frozen, they're churning it as it freezes. Cleanup on this machine is fairly easy. The only tricky bit is this bit on the lid. Water can get trapped inside it. The PacoJet uses a magnet to attach the blade, and I'm surprised they didn't just copy that design as well. But anyway, moving on. This next big machine is the Breville Smart Scoop, and it costs $499. It has a lid, a paddle, and a bucket with a hole down the centre because the motor to turn the paddle is inside the unit. And it also has a compressor, so there is no pre-freezing needed. Once you turn it on, you can choose what hardness you want to freeze it to, so let's set it to ice cream for this test. Then it says to pre-cool before you start. That took about 8 minutes for it to get really gold. Add in the mixture and leave it to churn. This again is one of the quietest units that we've tested. After 36 minutes of churning, it plays a little tune. You can change that to be a beep if you would prefer. This is a fairly firm ice cream. If you wanted it softer, you could have stopped it sooner, but this is what it looks like when it's scooped straight away. Your next option is to buy a Breville stand mixer and an ice cream bowl to go with it. Now together, if you buy both of those, it's only $7 more expensive than buying the ice cream compressor. And yes, you have to plan ahead. You have to freeze the bowl for 24 hours and you can't make one batch after the other. But for most people in most households, I think this is going to be a better financial option. The scraper on this one is unique because it's the only one that has a silicone edge, so it can actually scrape right to the edge of the bowl. The noise level is medium-low, and after a churn time of 21 minutes, it looks nice and airy. If you were to serve it immediately, it looks like this. The most expensive option today is to buy a KitchenAid stand mixer and their ice cream bowl, which instead of using its planetary mixing action, it has this weird piece that kind of pushes on. I think that's in the right spot. And then the ice cream paddle sits in the bowl and this bit kind of just sits on top of it and spins it around. The noise level is medium-low, the same as the Breville mixer, and after 20 minutes, it doesn't look like it's churning anymore. I think that's just spinning in one big clump. Let's stop and put some pink colouring on just to confirm if that's right. Yep, that's just spinning, not churning anymore, so I guess it's done. Here it is straight out of the bowl, and you can see here the big clump from the ice cream machine. Let me show you all of these being served side by side so you can compare the texture straight out of the bowl for all of them. Now before we get to the taste test, so far the winners for the least pre-freeze time needed were of course the compressors, both at 0 time, while everything else needed at least 24 hours in the freezer. The quickest churn time goes to the Ninja for a full fat at 5 minutes, but if you're doing low fat, then the Breville bowl and the KitchenAid bowl are faster at 21 minutes. The quietest award goes to the 2 compressors, closely followed by the 2 stand mixers. Time until the next batch is another win for the compressors, both being able to do another batch straight away. The runners-up for that are Ninja, which can do another batch if you have another container frozen, and the stand mixers, which of course can do another batch if you have a second ice cream bowl frozen. The biggest batch size is equal for these 4 machines, and the smallest amount of bench space needed goes to the Sunbeam and the Ninja. And the lowest price was of course the Sunbeam. Which of those features is important to you is going to depend on your individual circumstances. But when it comes to taste, that's important for everyone. In order to rank these from best to worst, we're going to need to test each machine against each other machine, which turns out to be 15 different taste tests. Now, to keep it scientifically accurate, we are going to do a triangle preference test. So how that works is for each taste test, there's 3 samples, 2 are the same and 1 is different. If they can correctly identify which one is different, that means they could tell a difference between them, and then they get to choose which one they prefer, and that machine will get a point. Importantly, they don't know which machines they're tasting, they're just tasting vanilla ice cream each time. If they can't tell a difference between the samples, so they don't know which one is different, then it's a draw and no points are awarded for that round.
Welcome to Ice Cream Wars!
For all of these, as I said, I've left them in the freezer overnight so that they're all at the same temperature. Without all the additives in commercial ice cream, the ice crystals can grow quite significantly on storage, which is why it's so important to make sure they're really small to start with. Otherwise, you're going to start detecting them on your tongue and it won't taste smooth.
Smoother, nicer, probably a bit more what I'd expect in a creamy vanilla ice cream.
I like these 2 outer ones the best.
The 2 outside ones are the same, and they're better than the inside one.
Yeah, that one's also smoother. So these 2 are the same, and they're better than this one.
This kid's different from these kids.
And which one do you prefer?
This kid.
I think the outside 2 are the same. Center one's a bit better. There's not much between them. I could even be wrong on which ones are the same.
All of these are worse than the other 2 that I tried.
That one's different, but I don't love any of them. I guess if I had to pick one, I'd pick that one.
The preference results on these tests were amazingly unanimous on nearly all of them.
These 2 are the same, and they're better than this one.
Same, different, better.
And that one's different, and those 2 are my favourites. And this one's much smoother.
But there is an exception. Whenever the Ninja Creami was in one of the taste tests, the result of the preferences was split 50-50. It seems you either like that dense texture with no air added into it, or you don't.
It's sort of got that strange taste to it, and yeah, big ice crystals, not great.
This one, it was very rich, but it was definitely delicious.
It's like really sticking to the spoon. Like it's It's almost like a bit more gelatinous.
Middle one is the smoothest, nicest.
So after adding up all of the points from the taste test, these are the scores for the best tasting ice cream. Coming in last with a miserable 3 points each was the Sunbeam, the Mistral compressor, and the Breville compressor, which really surprised me because usually if a machine is made for one function only, it usually does that function really well, but it was not preferred in this case. In third place, with a much more respectable 12 points, was the Ninja Creami. And coming in at a close second with 14 points was the Breville Bowl. And the clear winner in first place with 17 points was the KitchenAid Bowl. My personal preference if I'm making for a group of people would be to use either of the stand mixers. They both did a great job of only having tiny ice crystals. I probably lean towards the Breville only because I prefer the way it churns, and they're both fine with slushies. I tested them, with both do a great job of those. However, the exception comes in if you are making an individual serve, then the Ninja just seems really easy and convenient to do that. You can have different tubs with different recipes for different people in the freezer, and you can both have yours straight after the other. As long as you're happy for it to be dense and slightly icy and a very loud option, it is still very convenient in that way. A lot of people online are using it to make their protein shake into an ice cream. A lot of the protein powders have additives like emulsifiers, which are similar to what's in commercial ice cream. So that may actually help with reducing the iciness of it, as long as you're happy to have those additives. With thanks to my amazing patrons, you guys are wonderful and I really value you and appreciate you. Thank you so much. Make it a great week by being kind to others, and I'll see you on Friday.